Hey, what is up mortals, it's Edward Sailor here, and before we get into today's video, there's something I'd like to say. I'd like to let you all know that we have a merch store. Some of the items in it are only available for a limited amount of time. So if you're interested, go into the description and check it out. Each purchase helps us make more content. Secondly, if this video hits 500 likes by the end of the week, we will continue this what if. Thirdly, if you didn't know, only 41.3% of you guys are subscribed to us. So please hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon. Now with that out of the way, let's get into the story. As everyone else chatted away about various subjects in whatever group they split into, Izuku sat with Mineta. The two were starting to feel anxious, and he figured that since he was going to be doing some breathing exercises, he might as well help Mineta calm down as well. Slowly breathe in, hold, slowly breathe out. The two were making some good progress and feeling pretty calm since they began the exercise. Their little therapy session, however, was cut short by Shoto Todoroki. The taller teen stood in front of the other two and stared at them with an aloof expression. "You need something, Todoroki?" Midoriya wasn't all that familiar with Shoto. He tended to primarily stick to his group of friends, and Shoto typically stayed alone. Needless to say, it was bizarre. The silence that droned on after Midoriya's question was quickly becoming awkward. Everyone soon began noticing that the two boys seemed to having some sort of confrontation. "Objectively speaking, I'm stronger than you. At best, you're almost as capable as me." Midoriya didn't respond. He didn't know how to respond to such a declaration. Bakugo, on the other hand, responded immediately. Boisterous laughter burst from the young man as he fell back. He took his chair along for the ride down. The blonde tumbled with a loud bang as the chair met with the floor. After a while, Bakugo collected himself and got up with the biggest grin any of his classmates had ever seen plastered on his face.
"Listen here, you two-tone dumbass. I'm the only one here capable of beating Deku. He's second to none other than me. You got that half and half?"
No one could gauge Shoto's reaction. His face remained expressionless as another silence settled in. The tension building in the air was so thick, not even a chainsaw would be able to cut through it. Midoriya looked between the two boys. An almost nervous, awkward smile crept its way into him. "We'll find out who the best in the school is when this is all over. I'm not going to hold back when we're all aiming for the top." As he spoke, Midoriya shifted his gaze towards the entire class. Determination was evident not only on his face, or even just his tone of voice. His whole body radiated with the feeling. He was out to win, and he made it clear that everyone else should be too. Right as Ida was going to try and rein everyone in from what had just occurred, static of the speaker kicked in. President Mike's voice boomed in, announcing that the first years should be heading out to the stage. As the first years walked onto their battlefield, murmurs, shouts, and cheers could be heard from the crowd. Each class was introduced by the screeching voice of President Mike as they entered the field. Those that weren't part of the hero course quickly noted how lackluster the introductions were compared to those that were. It was disheartening for them, but no one had time to dwell on it. The R-rated hero Midnight walked out onto the stage in attire that made many people question why she was in a high school, let alone refereeing the first years. With some interruptions and the crack of her whip, she introduced Bakugo as the class representative that would be giving the speech. The bleached, blonde-haired boy calmly made his way to the stage. Everyone but Midoriya voiced their disbelief at who had been chosen to represent the first years. He wasn't exactly a bad person, but his vulgar vocabulary left much to be desired. He stared off into the distance with an uncharacteristically calm expression on his face as he waited for everyone to quiet down. It didn't take long.
"The athlete's oath. Make no mistake about it. I'm gonna take first place!"
Everyone except Midoriya reacted in one of three ways: silent shock, protests in horror, and verbal vomit of rage. Midoriya knew how serious Bakugo was taking this, even if their new friends didn't.
"You wanna prove me wrong? Quit whining and prove your worth, you extras!"
After Bakugo's last statement, he walked off stage. People continued to protest his speech as he walked back to his class. A couple of students that had started to get to know the passion-filled boy quickly stopped any protesting they had and had begun contemplating his words. It started to dawn on them that what initially seemed to be overconfidence and arrogance might have been something else entirely. What it might have been? They weren't sure though. The sea of participants didn't have time to linger on Bakugo. As soon as he was back with the rest of Class 1A, Midnight began announcing what the qualifiers would be. Gesturing to the screen behind her with her entire body, the words "Obstacle Course Race" popped up. With their fates decided, the students gathered around the small mechanical gate with traffic lights on it. As the entrance slowly opened, each consecutive light blinked on until all three were lit and their entry to the first challenge was open. Everyone moved at once, rushing to get ahead of each other, and it became a human avalanche. The opening they were given led to a narrow hallway that halted the struggling mob of riled up contestants. It was clear to many of them that this would be their first real challenge. Todoroki was the first to move. He'd gotten ahead of the crowd early and froze the majority of them to the ground. As the heterochromeous boy ran forward, he took a glance back to check who was still in the running. As he expected, everyone from his class except Mineta had been able to avoid his attack. To his surprise though, plenty of people outside the hero course were skilled enough as well. Shortly after they escaped from the clog of students, they were met with a large cluster of faux villains with a disturbing amount of zero-pointers amongst them. With a smirk, Todoroki froze the robots, with most of the others not realizing how unsteady and off-balance they were. Shortly after he passed between them, the mechanical menaces began to tip and fall over, nearly crushing many of the more naive competitors. To the surprise of some, 2 students did end up seemingly crushed under the fake villains, but quickly broke through and began charging forward. Bakugo and Midoriya led the pack in going over the moving obstacles. With Bakugo's explosions, he practically flew over the metal menaces. Midoriya, on the other hand, charged up One for All to 5% and maneuvered the robots in a manner reminiscent of Kamei Wood's. He might not have been able to use his Sharingan, but his body still remembered how the pro moved. Before we get back into the story, I would like to say that we've got a second channel called Anime Deep Dive. Anime Deep Dive goes over the hard facts of the anime presented. Now, in case you guys didn't know, we have a third channel called Anime Theory. Anime Theory mainly focuses on a large variety of mind-boggling anime theories. If you're interested in content like this, please go check the description below or click the eye icon in the top right corner. Now with that out of the way, let's get back into the story. It didn't take long for the 2 second place holders to reach the next part in the race. Platforms of Earth extended out of a seemingly endless chasm and were connected at odd angles by rope. Neither bothered slowly Gon to take it in or use the cords. Izuku upped his power outage to 8% and leapt from platform to platform while his best friend flew above him with the force of his quirk. They were still neck and neck, neither able to gain the upper hand on the other for even a second. As they cleared the canyon, the 2 caught up to the first place. Todoroki's pause to take in the fact that the students would be crossing a minefield cost him first place. He was passed by Midoriya and Bakugo. They were both using the full outputs of their quirks by this point. Both gained first place and to attack each other. They were neck and neck at first place while being at each other's necks. Bakugo fired off explosions at Midoriya, and in return the verdine-eyed boy grabbed at and elbowed the explosive blonde. The One for All user was holding a steady 10% of his power and using a careful footing to propel himself forward and seemingly glide right above the ground. As the 2 rivals started getting near the end of the field, Midoriya knew what he had to do. Todoroki was gaining on him, and it was blatant that he could lose the round to either of the boys near him. He planned his next step carefully. Midoriya upped the amount of One for All he was using for a brief moment to 15%. His body couldn't handle that much power for long, but it was just long enough for what he needed. His foot landed on the ground once more. As he shot himself forward and ahead of Bakugo, explosions after explosions went off behind him and furthered the lead he gained. He avoided stepping on any of the mines directly to avoid getting caught in the detonation. Instead, Midoriya used just enough force close enough to one of the clusters in the ground. By the time the smoke cleared, his rivals in the trail had lost track of him. Not long after he disappeared, President Mike announced Izuku Midoriya had gotten first place. Having finally reached the light at the end of the tunnel, pride and relief filled Midoriya as it was announced that he got first place. Not even a minute after him, Bakugo landed in second and Todoroki in third. Midoriya didn't have much time to celebrate his victory though. As soon as Bakugo had collected himself a little, he ran at the freckled-faced boy while shouting Deku at him as loud as he could. When he tried tackling the first place winner to the ground as revenge for stealing the win from him, but the 2 ended up locking hands and trying to wrestle each other to the ground.
Damn it, Deku! What the hell was that bullshit? You asshole!
Despite Bakugo's venomous tone, the expression he wore on his face was a somewhat friendly one. I can't do it for long, but I can use about 15% of One for All now. That extra training really put me ahead of you. The smile on Midoriya's face more than gave away how much he enjoyed roughhousing with his childhood friend. Kachan slammed his head into Deku's after hearing the last part.
That doesn't mean shit! I still got the rest of the sports festival to kill you!
The forest green-haired boy pushed back against his sharp-eyed rival, putting them at a stalemate. Eventually, they had to be forcefully separated so that everyone could continue on with the event. The entirety of Class 1A ended up barely making it through the event, with Mineta ending up in last place. Now that everyone was sorted and knew who was going into the next part of the festival, Midnight announced and explained the cavalry battle. Everyone's heads turned to Midoriya when it was explained that first place had 1 million points. It was at that moment that he knew he would be everyone's target. As the rules were elaborated on, Midoriya wondered how people would react. He assumed an adequate amount of people would want to avoid being on his team since he was the biggest target. When it finally became time to make teams, he was right in a sense. There were unquestionably tons of people who wanted nothing to do with him, but he didn't expect to get nearly the attention that he did. Picking people to be on his team had been far harder than he expected, but not for the reasons he initially thought. All the parties ended up being settled rather quickly and chaotically. He made the best team he could given the options that he had, and it wasn't an inadequate group at all. With the people he picked, he was more than confident that they would take first place and ensure that they would make it to the last event at the sports festival. Thank you all for watching the video to the end. Now there's a few more things that I'd like to go over before the video ends. On behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank the writer for this video and the editors for this video. Their details will be in the description. If you're a voice actor, editor, or writer, or you're interested in becoming one of those, go to the Discord that's in the description of this video and hit up the head of one of those areas. We're always looking for members to join us. That's it from us for today's video, so thank you all for watching, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you're interested, and hit that like button if you liked the video. Until next time, peace out mortals, have a fantastic day.